Hello, I'm Cheryl Lyon with the Upper Sandusky Community Library, and today we are doing the cookbook discussion group online, and we are going to be doing the crock pot meal. Now, whether you realize it or not, the crock pot is not just for soup. You can make desserts, you can make side dishes. So I'm going to show you how to do 2 out of the 3, but show you and explain to you how you can do a side dish. First, we're doing the double chocolate orange pudding cake. Yes, you can do pudding cakes in the crock pot as much as you can do them in the oven. But the main thing when we start this is we're going to use a medium-sized crock pot, and we're going to spray the bottom only. So I made this at home last week just to make sure it turns out, and I will show you what it looks like when it does. We'll spray the bottom of the crock pot. So our first ingredient, if you follow along on your recipe, I've got everything pre-measured pretty much. So we're going to start with, this is the pudding mixture. 1 cup pre-measured of all-purpose flour. We're going to add 3/4 cup of granulated sugar. Then we're going to add 1/4 cup. No, we're going to add the 3 tablespoons of cocoa because the other one will be used in the bottom part, which we'll be able to flipping over later. So this is 3 tablespoons of cocoa. Now there are several kinds of cocoa on the market. This is the Dutch variety because I like it because it's very dark. If you go to your bulk food store, you're going to find at least 3 different varieties. So this is the darker one because I'm a real big chocolate fan. So we're going to mix those together for now. That's, of course, the sugar, the flour, and the cocoa. Now we're going to put in the baking powder. Always make sure your baking powder is fresh. If it isn't, then you will not have this rise like it's supposed to. So we're going to use 2 teaspoons. That's how I measure those out, just at the top and the rim of the can. So there's 2 teaspoons of our baking powder. I'm not adding salt. I do not add salt to my dessert recipes. So we've already got this until it's well blended. Now we're going to stir in the milk, which I've already pre-measured, 1/2 cup of milk. I use the low fat, but you can use whatever you want in it. So far, this is going to be your actual pudding mixture. Okay, so after that, we're going to add the butter, which I've already pre-melted, and that is 3 tablespoons. I only use real butter because it tastes the best. So we're going to mix the butter in next. And then, for those who have never used it before, orange zest. That's why we call it chocolate orange pudding cake. So buy this also at the bulk food store, and that way you can only get what you need, and then that way you get it fresher when you buy it that way. So we're putting that in, the orange zest. And last but not least in this part of it, 1/2 cup of real semi-sweet chocolate chips. So we'll mix that all together, and we're going to put the batter into the slow cooker. Now, it does not say on your recipe to do the spraying, but I did the bottom only so we can get it out easier. I didn't do it on the sides. Obviously, that might make a difference for the cake rising. So we're going to put the batter in the bottom. Spread it out really nice. And of course, we want to get out every bit of that chocolate. So this is kind of what it looks like when you're putting the actual batter in the bottom. Okay? Next layer is the brown sugar and the remaining 1/4 cup of cocoa. So we are going to use the brown sugar that I've already got pre-measured. You can use light or dark, whatever you feel like doing. And the 1/4 cup of cocoa, which I obviously have already pre-measured. Same, it's the Dutch variety. And we're going to mix mix that all together. Now we'll sprinkle this gently over the batter. We want to get all those little lumps out of the brown sugar. Like that. And a little bit about crock pots. The crock pots actually work by using low heat and liquid to cook your meats and vegetables. Not that we're using that for this. Liquid helps keep the heat in the meat, and you put the meat usually in the bottom and then the vegetables on top. That way you know your meat is going to get done. But if you use high, 1 hour is equal to 2 hours on low. Now this cake, for some reason, it says you must use high. Okay, so this is going to be our next layer. We're just going to sprinkle that over the chocolate batter. You wonder, how in the world is this really going to turn out? Well, it does. So I'll just kind of show you. Now we got the 2 layers. That's the second layer. Okay, number 3. The easiest part there is we're going to pour, this is hot water, 1 2/3 cup of hot water, boiling water. I've already put it in the microwave, so it's hot. It's already been measured, 1 2/3 cup. That's what's going to, everything together is going to make a chocolate pudding cake. Do not, under any circumstances, stir this. Okay, so what you do is you put your crock pot lid on top, plug it in, and cook it exactly 2 hours. Now I checked it at 1 hour and like 3/4, and because it says to use your cake tester. You can do that for the cake part, but you'll always have the pudding in the middle. So just make sure the cake is done, then your pudding will come in. It'll be a really nice thick pudding. And then what I did is left it in the crock pot for 10 minutes after it was done, which was approximately 2 hours on high, okay? Then I got a plate and literally flipped it onto the plate. So what happens is your cake turns out to the bottom, okay? And your pudding is on top. Now you could do it that way, or if you love warm pudding cake, you can get a spoon and just bring their spoon in there and just lift it out, put whipped cream or ice cream on top, and then you'll have a nice warm dessert for dinner tonight. So that is the chocolate, double chocolate, orange pudding cake. Okay, the second thing we're going to make is slow cooker lentil sloppy joes. Now, I had this first, and they were like sloppy joes you could put in a bun, but my husband and I prefer them as a side dish, or you can make them as a soup. And for those who don't even know what a lentil is, I will show you. First of all, this is how it will look when you're finished with your lentils if you add a little bit of a liquid to it. Okay? If you don't add as much liquid, obviously you can make them as sloppy joes. So, lentils. I've already rinsed them, and the reason you rinse lentils is you have to sort them, because once in a while you will find a stone in them, but you don't have to soak them overnight like you do dried beans. So these are baby lentils. There's many different colors. I've only bought the brown, and these are the baby ones, and I get them at the bulk food store. You can buy lentils even at the dollar store, or you can buy them at your local food store, whichever you want to do it. But I've already rinsed these. Okay, a little bit about lentils and how they came to be. Lentils are one of the world's oldest health foods. Growers first raised them in the Middle East in 8000 BC, and they've worked their way west since then. Along the way, they considered it a poor man's food, when the Egyptians often regarded it as a royal fare. So they came to America in the early 16th century, and during World War II, people began to see them as a low-cost, high-protein meat substitute. So there are different varieties and they actually have different textures and a little bit different flavors. And the green ones have more fiber than all the others. I've only encountered the red ones, the green ones, and other varieties in a really big bulk food store up in Michigan. Normally you only see the brown or the green. So we're going to do this according to the way I do it at home and according to your recipe, what's nice about this lentil soup is you can add or subtract what you do or you don't like. So first we're going to do, as I always do, with my trusty cooking spray, so you don't have it stick. With this you can coat the whole slow cooker. I've already pre-measured my lentils, so we put those in dry, but just make sure you check for stones. On occasion you do find them. So we're going to stick those in first. Now according to your recipe, you're supposed to use vegetable broth. I think that's more for the vegetarians, but I do chicken in my crock pot, so I have all this broth. It's salt-free, sodium-free, there's no preservatives. So I already pre-measured, and you can use as little or as much as you want, but this is chicken broth that I've made at home. So we're going to add that. And if you love onions, you can put onions in. And of course, fresh green pepper. This is very colorful if you use the crushed tomatoes. Now originally I was going to use the crushed tomatoes, which is on your recipe, but I found that my husband and I prefer either diced or the stewed tomatoes. So that's what we're going to add instead. If you want to look and just see here real quick what it kind of just looks like right now. Okay, but we still have a lot of spices to add. I'm not putting the garlic in. And I'm one of those people that have made this so many times that I'm not measuring my spices. Now I'm adding parsley flakes, which is not in the recipe because we like the taste of it. So we'll add just a little bit of that. And we are also having, instead of oregano, we're using Italian seasoning. Just sprinkle some of that onto taste. My favorite chili powder, and I actually get this at the bulk food store. They have a darker variety. So we're going to add a little bit of that. You can pre-measure yours if you want to, but I just kind of go by sight. And one of my all-time favorites, paprika. I do not add the mushrooms to this one, and I don't use the vinegar. But I pretty much put everything. I didn't add salt because usually when you use the containers of broth, it has enough salt in it, so you don't have to do that. The only thing different, what we all do, you add water to this. Now, if you do it on low, it's going to take about 6 hours. If you do it on high, it might take 4. You kind of have to watch it a little bit. And when you use the crushed tomatoes, you won't have to use much liquid. But what I will do is add water to this and keep a little bit of an eye on it to make sure the lentils, because they do absorb a lot of liquid, that you make sure you have plenty of liquid in it so it doesn't completely dry up. But that's basically how we do the lentils, except that I would add more water to it. But this is how they turn out when you do it this way. It's like this. Now, something that is really interesting that someone told me, you can also do side dishes in the crock pot. One of my favorite things to do is rice. This is actually brown rice, not white rice. It's much healthier, has more vitamins in it. So this is actually cooked brown rice in the crock pot. I used my small one, and I just put 1 cup of brown rice to about 3.5 cups of water. Put it on low about 6 hours, or on high for maybe 3. Just kind of keep an eye on it, and it comes out nice and fluffy every time. And that way, and did you know you can freeze the rice? That way, if you want to make it for rice pudding or some casserole down the way, you can make a big batch of it, stick it in the freezer, and just thaw it out. So that's how you can do rice in the crock pot. So I hope you enjoyed seeing what I did with the crock pot and the different varieties of things you can do. We have plenty of crock pot cookbooks here at the library if you'd like to come up and check any out. And if you are wondering what we're doing next month, we are doing tailgate foods, and we're doing, of course, October is pumpkin month. So I'm going to find a recipe and make something really interesting with pumpkin. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and then you'll tune into next month. Thank you.